Try to picture a universe, not of deliverance through harmony and enlightenment, but by such things as blood, obscurity, and extinction, where leaders with grand claims of interstellar space travel and immortality offer the worst nightmare. This isn't the script of a horror movie, but the story of real cults that are still out to claim more lives from their fanatical devotees in the name of attaining celestial longevity. Japan, 1995. A usual Tokyo morning transformed into a horrific experience when an unknown menace struck the subways. People choked, fell down, clutching their waists, and groaning in pain. The poison? Sarin gas. The attackers? Adults with the goal of an apocalyptic society and fixated in an extreme and dangerous manner. While On Shinrikyo was also a cult, it was so much more of a cult than the lesser ones. Aum Shinrikyo, whose name means Supreme Truth, originated in the 1980s as a spiritual community integrating Hindu and Buddhist teachings. It was run by Shoko Asahara, a man who managed to enslave the minds of thousands of people and proclaim that the end of the world is near and only he can protect them. But the salvation and experience of the Great Transformation entailed a terrifying price for him. The cult had its version of Northern Buddhism and Hinduism, with elements of apocalyptic prophecy thrown into the bargain. Their ultimate goal? To cause the end of their world themselves, if that is the only way that it could be done. Many of Asahara's supporters in Japan attended prestigious colleges. They were young individuals from academically driven backgrounds with equally pressurized professions ahead of them, and the cult pledged them a more fulfilling life. They planned for global devastation that no citizen could even make a wild guess about. Aum Shinrikyo had deadly, lethal weapons in his possession. Here, they did not stop at sarin gas. Scientists and engineers of the cult, most of whom were high-ranking professionals, were using biological and chemical warfare, including anthrax and botulinum toxin. And this attack on Tokyo was just the start of using modern warfare and science on people. Shoko Asahara did not only lead the group, he presented himself such as that his followers were convinced he's a messiah. They also believed he possessed some extraordinary supernatural powers, from the ability to levitate, to read minds, and even travel through time. One look from Shoko, and his eyes could seep into your soul. To his followers, he was not just a human being they could meet and talk to. He was their spiritual shepherd that told them that he would shield them from Judgment Day, if only they stuck with him until the bitter end. Aum Shinrikyo's influence is still apparent even after the arrest and removal from power of its leader Asahara. Now it is called Aleph, which doesn't seem to have any sinister connotation, but it actually does. It is said that the group continues to actively recruit new members and continues to mouth threats of chaos. His followers remain under the strong impression that genocide and mass destruction was the only way to salvation and nirvana. While many have traveled away, some still stick to the commitment, holding the flame of his perverse idea in the basement of postmodern Japan. But the terror did not run its course and spread over to Japan. In the early 90s, Aum Shinrikyo practiced its act in Russia as civil war substantially expanded, partly caused by the Soviet disintegration. It was also during this time that Branch sought nuclear weapons pimping. To which degree was the audience impacted? No one knows for sure. However, there are reports of other Russian followers who, for faith in Asahara, believed that the ultimate destruction could be started on a worldwide scale. The issues of psychological manipulation were at the very root of Aum Shinrikyo activities. Asahara concealed his teachings under layers of philosophy, where followers felt like they were just rationally exposed to the deep wisdom of Buddhism. But it was control, brainwashing that was hidden from the eyes. His followers thought they were rescuing the world, even justifying the worst of sins, thinking their master was the only one who did know the truth. No one knows for sure how many people are still out there carrying out these twisted practices. That is why there are still chances and threats that Aleph, along with his teachings, could submerge again. begin. In the southern region of Siberia in Russia, there is a commune that inhabits what is regarded as the middle of nowhere. Thus, Visarion, the prophet, who appeared after hinting that he is the reincarnation of Jesus. To his followers, he is the last prophet through whom God will set the world all right in the end of time. For them, he is not the man, he is the Word made flesh in their great guru, the Church of the Last Testament. It is not just a religious group. Visarion does not hold a standard teaching like Christ would teach people. Instead, he combines Christianity with environmentalism and Eastern conceptions and writes his own Bible. He says he has edited the Bible and presents people with another way to be saved. They refer to him as the teacher, and all that he does, all that he says, seems a revelation to them. The community does not exist within the accessible amalgamation of contemporary civilization. They have put up their homes in one of the worst climatic zones you can ever think of, Siberian taiga. There, they lead plain, normal lives, tilling the land, construction, and eschewing any form of technology. They have no money, no alcohol, and no indulgence. They think, residing next to nature, one's soul becomes purified or ready for the new world that Visarion guarantees. But the snowy crystal clarity of the landscape of Siberia conceals something stark opposite. Many followers complain about exhaustion and inability to perform the labor tasks Visarion sets for them. Yet who can deny to follow up a command when it's from the saint to whom they have devoted their lives to? This means that the life of the people in the community is strictly organized, which means there is a clear demarcation of the roles that women and men ought to be playing in the society. Females in the films do household chores and have to be polite and obedient to their male counterparts who do the hardest work. Visarion has absolute control over everything and everybody in the movement. It's somewhat of a mind control. People are not allowed to doubt what he says. To go against this brings out that one has gone against salvation itself. Not even when its founder, Visarion, was arrested in 2020 on charges of embezzlement and sexual abuse of his followers, his church stood still when many thought it would collapse. To his many followers, this was not an end, but just another lesson, another way of gaining merit. They go on bowing before him as the Christ, expecting the time when he will come again. His imprisonment? It's just their God's will, in other words, Visarion's own will. However, what is prominently at the center of this discussion is why are his followers so loyal? The answer is right within the prophecy given by Visarion. There will be an apocalyptic event. He has been saying this from day one, teaching his disciples that only the righteous shall inherit the earth, only he and his chosen few. They stay alert and waiting, as if their wait is for this calamity that is prophesied to happen but never came. Ever since, the belief has grown even stronger that dates have come and gone. Even more shocking is that today those people are scattered across the globe, receiving the teachings of Visarion. Born and raised in Russia and firmly rooted in Siberia, they continue to spread rumors of the Church of the Last Testament. Europeans and people from other regions visit the wilderness and make their way to the man they expect to navigate them through the apocalypse. They count every corner of this planet from the worst to the best, waiting eagerly with eyes and ears wide open, preparing for the second coming. The Church of the Last Testament remains standing, hermetic and unreachable to the outside world, in a time where every day is spent waiting for a judgment day that may never arrive. But that fear is still there, that if the group's Messiah's utopian ideal is not realized, the followers may do it themselves. There is a cartel in the heart of Mexico that is unlike any other. They call themselves La Familia Michoacana, but they are much more than just a drug syndicate. They operate as a cult, employing both extremely high levels of violence and a perverted version of religion. Their leader, Nosario Moreno, also known as Eras Loco, the craziest, taught Christianity, vanity, and cartel membership. For his followers, he was not a thief. He was a man of words who came to show them another level of hope, a new society based on faith in violence. Moreno effectively made his followers believe that their violent actions were warranted. They were serving a divine providence. While it was a religion, murder, extortion, and terror were painted white and were legal. The cartel issued among its followers what is called the Bible, a document containing Moreno's writings, as well as replete with moral standards of rightness and wrongs of cartel members, of cartel loyalty, discipline, and service to the society. But behind these words lay a darker truth, the absolute power over others, as well as vigilantism of tossing power around forcefully. It's not just a drug gang. La Familia Michoacana believes it is acting righteously. They would arrest criminals and drug addicts, then how they would parade them around and kill them, saying they were ridding the community of evil, thus with some degree of irony, aiming to portray themselves as something like defenders of the people's interests. At least in a number of cases, they help the people and avenge themselves on the oppressors. However, anyone that chooses to antagonize them would undoubtedly discover the evil side of their righteousness. Despite his death was said to have occurred in 2010, Moreno's effect trudged along with him. Indeed, his supporters thought he was a superhuman and perceived that he had divine protection and he would come back again. His spirit dominated them, and many were sure that he had escaped and would be back to head the cartel. Then in 2014, the Mexican authorities formally identified his corpse after he had had a second run-in with the police. But even then, his legend went on and his teachings guided the activities of the cartel all the same. When Moreno was killed, La Familia Michoacana was disbanded, but it was far from being wiped off the face of the earth. The group then split, with some of them founding Los Caballeros Templarios, the Knights Templar, which, like its predecessor, fused cartel business with religious connotations. This new faction just kept Moreno's vision alive, using religion as a font, while keeping control over drug trafficking, violence, and extortion in Michoacán and other regions. Up to date, La Familia Michoacana has not stopped even to this very day. The group, however, continues to exist to date, and they continue to wear the disguise of religion. They keep on mobilizing, training, and dominating some regions of Mexico, with coercion and fear in the fake heaven of God's retribution. It has made them able to control beliefs and turn ethics into an instrument of domination. The reason why they are still alive while the entire population is horrified. La Familia Michoacana is not any ordinary criminal organization. It is a cult, a group that thinks whatever they do, including acts of violence, are approved by a superior authority. And this is where we see the horrific union of fundamentalism and the mafia associated with the same degree of religiosity as with violence. Behind the veil of clouds of mysticism, secrets, and the terrible expectation of apocalypse in such circles of the quiet, beautiful towns of Europe and Canada, there used to exist the mysterious organization called the Order of the Solar Temple. Created in the 1980s by Joseph Di Mambro and Luc Jouret, the order was declared to serve enlightenment, raising people to new dimensions and education for a star trip. However, reading between the lines of their dogmatic instructions, more sinister realities that culminated in genocide, deaths, and suicides, with death as the ultimate solution, eventually brimmed to the surface. The order connected itself with the Knights Templar, which also idolized themselves in a number of mysteries and implied the knowledge of how the world is going to end. People engaged in these sites owing to their belief that they would be in a position to deal with the apocalypse, having shipped out that the global community was nearing its end. Di Mambro and Jouret were virtually worshipped and taught that followers were to be given a second chance in a faraway star called Sirius, provided they did as the leaders instructed them. On its face, the order was not merely a religious sect, it was a death sect, its overseers shaping all facets of people's existence. Social status of the order's members was high. Most of them were wealthy, many were professionals, scientists, and intellectuals who thought that they were to bring the new era to people, the era of new understanding and new knowledge. What is more, the way of the bodhisattvas, who were supposed to save everybody, was paved with blood. In 1994, the news of the terrors of the Order in Kirkcaldy were finally revealed. In Switzerland and Canada, the over 50 members of the group was subject to a mass murder-suicide where they had died. They had worn formal gowns, their bodies positioned in a stelliform manner, many of them shot or poisoned. Some had been drugged, and some had been brutally treated against their struggle to stay alive. Indeed, de Mombro and Doré had managed to convince their followers that their deaths would assimilate them to a superior order. As a consequence, to them it was not murder, but rather a kind of passage to the next world. Not even children were exempted. Among the victims, de Mombro's son and some other kids who were killed because de Mombro said they were the Antichrist, a dreadful twist in this mad prophecy. But this wasn't the end. Additional deaths occurred in 1995 and 1997 due to the other members of the Order committing suicide in France and Canada, believing that other leaders of the Order guided them, explaining they must prepare for traveling to a distant galaxy. But even after the most horrifying deaths, the horrific visions of the group never entirely disappeared from a very small group of followers. The Order of the Solar Temple is not just one of the sad phenomena of the past. It left a sinister mark of manipulation and blind faith. The teachings of the group, its apocalyptic views, and the hope to attain salvation through death all went towards making one of the most notorious cults of the late 20th century. Today, however, the philosophy of the Order is echoed in certain groups of fanatics, and like all these fanatics, the Order went too far in their beliefs and actions. The Solar Temple acted across Europe and Canada, and despite not being involved in the hostilities, the murders in the name of Wotan, the kidnap and release of children, and the subsequent mass suicide are still a dark memory of the continent. Despite their inactivity as an organization, the Order has left the public dim with the thought that the remnants of the teaching of the Order could spring up one day. Unbelievable but true, these cults are not just folklore nightmares of today. No, they are extensions of today, lurking in the darkness, ready to ensnare the first lost soul. The better world in search for salvation will get it at the most expensive price, which is life itself. Stay vigilant. That is because darker ideas are considered to be the most hidden, but visible.